Wicca as a religion, as a philosophy, as a practice, as a movement, has gone through a lot of changes since it first started with Gerald Gardner back in the late 1950s. But there's still some elements to all different types of Wiccans that actually unite us as a particular grouping of witch. And I'm going to talk about what those things are today under the subject of what do Wiccans do. But before I do, hi, I'm Sandra from mysterywitchschool.com, and if you're new to the channel and you want to become Wiccan or you want to find out more about Wicca, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos. So what do Wiccans do? Generally speaking, there's different types of Wiccans, right? You've got your Gardnerians, you've got your Alexandrians, you've got people who follow Cochrane, you've got people who follow Raymond Buckland with the Seers Wicca. There's so many different genres of Wicca or denominations of Wicca that sometimes it's hard to keep track of who does what. And over the last few decades, we've seen a lot of eclectic styles of Wicca. So Wiccans who are solitary, who don't follow necessarily a particular school of Wicca, they don't belong to covens, and they've adapted a lot of traditional witchcraft practices and shamanic practices and other types of pagan practices into their work, but they still follow some particular things that all Wiccans have in common, regardless of whether you're Gardnerian or you're eclectic. I like to teach a more eclectic style of Wicca because I do feel that even though there's core components of what Wiccans do, there's still a lot of room for variety within that, and it's important as creative human beings that we have flexibility in how we connect with spirit, how we work our magic, and what we do in regards to our daily life. So there's really just common things that Wiccans have in common, and as to how these things are practiced is really up to the individual themselves. So the first one I'm going to talk about is nature, this connection to nature, this reverence that we have for nature. I don't think you'd find any Wiccan groups that don't have this connection to nature, because it really came out of that desire to get back to nature and honor nature, connect to the natural energies, to the seasons, to the lunar cycles, connecting to the four elements of the earth, air, water, and fire. And understanding that we are part of nature and an expression of nature the same as all of the other natural phenomena are. And that for us humans, it's very arrogant of us to think that we have the right to rape and pillage the earth for our own advancement and our own means. And we've been in this cycle for quite some time, and we know that that has to change. So we revere the earth as an expression of spirit, the expression of this universal energy. So it's sacred to us, the same as a church or a synagogue or a mosque is sacred to people of those religions. Nature is our temple, nature is our church, our mosque, our synagogue. It's where we gather together, and it's where we find that sense of connection to deities, to that universal spiritual connection to our higher selves and to all of the energies of the earth. So we go into nature a lot. We like to spend time in nature. We like to sit in nature. We like to ground ourselves, doing grounding exercises, meditating in nature, listening to the sounds of nature, trying to connect to the energies going on in nature. That means connecting to the unseen natural energies as well as to the animals and the plant life. Being able to understand messages that natural creatures, for example, animals, may be bringing to us, understanding various animals and their behavior, and nature and the way that she behaves, the way the planet behaves. That's why we celebrate 8 Sabbats, which are seasonal Sabbats, that celebrate the seasonal changes that we find in that yearly cycle. And we also celebrate the lunar cycles because the moon has such a strong influence over planet Earth. So we celebrate the cycles of nature, both on this planet and also the stellar influence as well. We're very much into astrology, even if we don't focus and specialize in astrology as astrologers. We do use and utilize astrology a lot in our work. So it's this connection to nature, and it's nature beyond planet Earth. It's also the nature out there in the entire universe. Understanding we are all one with nature, that we humans aren't this, we're not that special like we think we are. We are biologically animals, the same as a cat or a dog is an animal. And even though we may be more cognitively intelligent and have certain abilities that other animals don't have, that doesn't give us a license to put ourselves up on a pedestal. What it does do is it should actually make us be more custodians of the earth and try to more consciously work with the earth so that we can create with the earth rather than going against it. So that's the nature side of Wicca. There's more to it, but I don't want this video to be too long. The second thing is that Wicca is a religion, and we are theistic. So we have deities. We work with the masculine and feminine representation of universal force and universal energies. And amongst the goddess energy and the god energy, there are facets of, or aspects of the goddess energy and aspects of the god energy. And they represent the masculine and the feminine creative energies, which every living being has within them, regardless of what gender you may identify with. There's that interplay of masculine and feminine. A good example is of another pagan religion, Taoism, which always refers to yin and yang. It's the same concept as yin and yang. We just don't call it yin and yang, we call it goddess and god. And we work with those energies in a very personal way. Now, some Wiccans will just work duotheistically, which means they'll only work with goddess and god. Others will work with a number of different deities, so we're more polytheistic. So there might be a number of different goddesses you might work with at different times, a number of different gods you might work with at various different times. So we see deity as being all these various different expressions and aspects of one united force of which we're all a part of. So we're aspects of the divine, they're aspects of the divine. They're just aspects on a different level of consciousness to us physical beings here on planet Earth. So we connect with these beings, we connect with these consciousnesses in order to be able to work with them. Now, we work with them for various different reasons. We may want to work with them because we're wanting to evolve ourselves and become higher conscious beings, and they can certainly assist us with that. And often we'll work with them to help us with mundane things as well, like, getting jobs, healing, bringing in extra money here and there, and basically doing anything that we need to do here in the mundane land of planet Earth. So we work with them for inner and outer reasons. And many different Wiccans will have very different relationships with different deities. There's a lot of Wiccans who will sometimes just work with one aspect of deity. They may only work with the feminine, for example. And so the masculine isn't worked with at all. That actually happens in more of a feminist variety of Wicca. The third thing about Wicca that we all have in common is the practice of magic. Now, I know I have read where some Wiccans don't practice magic. I personally do not know of any Wiccans myself who don't practice magic or who aren't interested in magic, so I can't speak from experience with that. But I believe there are some small groups of Wiccans who don't do magic, which is perfectly fine. But most Wiccans practice magic. So we'll practice magic to be able to influence the world around us, to be able to influence ourselves as well, and to make life easier for us. For those of you who are familiar with law of attraction, magic is just an older term for law of attraction. So for people who believe that we can create our own reality and that our intention and our ability to manifest and that the universe is a mirror of what we're putting out there, then you understand magic, because that's basically what magic is. And we work with magic. We connect with the earth when we're working magic a lot of the time. So we will work with herbs, We will work with gemstones to help bring that magic into and to utilize the Heka within these herbs, within the energy of crystals. And it just helps us connect more with the energy of Heka, or the energy, that universal energy, or that magical energy, depending on what you want to call it, that flows through us. And that's what magic is about. It's about understanding that energy. In Taoism, it's called qi, that kind of thing. So that's magic. Magic isn't necessarily this dark thing that we've been led to believe it is. Certainly, you can use law of attraction or magic to be manipulative and harmful, but that's the person that's doing that. It's not the magic itself. Magic is energy, and it's what we as individuals do with that energy that determines what the outcome's most likely or possibly going to be. I think for all of us who've worked with magic, especially over a long period of time, you'll know that's often your intentions, or what you think should happen or you wanted to happen when you've done magic hasn't necessarily been the case. That something has come to you in a way totally left of field, in a totally different guise to how you thought it was going to come to you. So magic's got influences that also rely on other things that are going on outside of you as well. So don't think of magic as like on television where you just click your fingers or you say a spell and bang, stuff happens. There's a lot of other factors involved in magic, and as witches we understand that. So the last thing is, and this isn't something that I learned from my coven, but it's something I think that came later, and it's definitely something that I think as Wicca has evolved as a spirituality, that we're embracing more and more, and that as human beings we need to embrace more and more. And that's doing the inner inquiry work, or what we call the shadow work, where we start to work on ourselves, to develop ourselves to be the best people that we can be. And that means getting rid of all limiting thoughts and beliefs that are stopping us from being who we really are and expressing who we really are in the world. And those thoughts and beliefs and programs that we've learned from the environment around us as we were growing up, and finding out what's working for us and what isn't working for us, and changing those so that we can evolve and so that we can become more empowered to create a much better life here on earth. So the inner work, the inner inquiry about ourselves, so being able to observe ourselves, being able to be more in control of ourselves so that we're not reacting to the world. We've got more ability to be able to walk through the world in a much smoother way. We don't blame the outside world for what's happening to us. We're able to take more responsibility for how we feel, and we do that by learning about ourselves and developing the skills and the techniques that help us be able to control, I don't like saying control our emotions, but become less triggered by outside forces or other people. We stop blaming other people for things that are going on in our lives or going wrong, and we start looking at ourselves as being the powerful creator who can change circumstances simply by changing how we react and how we think and what we believe. So this is where the real magic happens. You can try to do magic to change the outside world, to bring money to you, to bring a relationship to you, to bring a job to you, to bring healing. But if you haven't done the inner work, that magic's probably not, generally speaking, going to be that successful, or it's not going to bring to you what you really want or what you really deserve. It may bring you things that aren't necessarily the best thing, because your mindset is so important when it comes to the results of magic. So that inner work, the shadow work, is a really important part of Wicca. I wouldn't say that all Wiccans necessarily adhere to the inner work, but I'd say it's definitely something that has influenced it. And I think it's actually the most important part of any spiritual practice, whether it's general witchcraft or whether it's Wicca or any other spiritual practice. It really does, the buck really does start and stop with ourselves. So those four things are really what unite us as a grouping of people. And some people will practice these things differently to other people. It really just depends on what your training is, what your background is, and what you tend to gravitate towards. I do have a reasonable traditional background because my coven did follow that more Gardnerian Alexandrian way of working. So I've got that more traditional coven background. However, when I'm teaching Wicca, especially in my course, Mystery Witch School 101, I'm teaching much more from an eclectic point of view, but a lot of that stuff that I gained from my coven experience is certainly in there, but I've also added other things that I've learned over the last 30 years into that course as well, shadow work being one of them. And that was something I didn't get when I was in my first coven. We didn't go into any of the inner work. It was all more to do with ritual, with connecting, with magic, but not so much about ourselves. And I found for me, that's actually what took me away from Wicca. I went looking for that in other places, and so I had to go outside of the craft in order to find that inner work. So having done that, I've come back to the craft and I've brought that particularly back with me because that was what was missing for me in my early days. So if you are interested in studying more of an eclectic form of Wicca, where you do cover those 4 things, including the inner work, then take a look at Mystery Witch School 101. It's a 12-month course. You can take longer to do it. You don't need to only be 12 months. You can take longer. And I just take you right from the very beginning and just lead you every month. I build on the month before so that you can actually practice the craft and not just read about it. So do check that out. It's in the description field below this video. If you like the video, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Sandra from mysterywitchschool.com. Blessed be.